Hi there,
That's
welcome.
Sorry.
Welcome to our roundtable session, and this is our second episode. So welcome, and first and foremost, I want to thank everybody for supporting us and showing us so much love. It was overwhelming, and we're just full of gratitude. So thank you so much, and we hope you continue to appreciate what we bring to you. And like always, please respect the panelists and their experiences. These are raw emotions that we always put out on the table, so we do ask you to please respect them. And also, just remember, this is a safe space for our panelists and the experts, and also for you guys. We want to bring out topics that you guys have requested that you want to talk about. So please, let's be mindful and leave the vile comments out, and just take it for what it is. And I also want to thank our vendors, Aria Banquet Hall. We're coming live from Aria Banquet Hall today, and Vidar Studios, Rita's Kitchen, Olive and Thorn Events. They did this beautiful decor, and Angel Personalized for these beautiful gift boxes. So if you need any of these services, feel free to call these folks. They're absolutely amazing. And so we're just going to jump right in today. So I'm just going to introduce the panelists, and then we're going to start with our topic, which is before getting counseling, premarital counseling, the conversation young couples should have before you get married. Finances, we will be also talking about living with the in-laws, buying your own properties, surrogacy, IVF, infertility, double standards in our society, and also, men getting remarried versus women getting remarried. And just please keep in mind, we're not going to be discussing all the topics today, so this is going to overflow into third and the fourth episodes. So on to my left is Sharon from Contour Studio, Suki from Princess Studios, Shannon Mann from Prince Orchid, Pink Orchid. And
you're princess or prince.
I know. And we have Vijay from Man Counseling. So this is our guest expertise today. And so we're going to start off with Vijay today. So Vijay, tell us about the benefits of premarital counseling, because I know there's a lot of stigma and stereotype added to, oh my God, they got you wrong. Why are you going for counseling before? Like, are you guys having problems? You're not going to make it through those questions.
Right.
So tell us about that.
You hit it on the head right there. There's huge stigma with any kind of counseling in our community, but with premarital, it's a lot of that. And people think counseling is it's a reactive thing. If you already have problems in your relationship, you go see a counselor, but it's not really that. It is that to a certain point, but for premarital, it's about working out the kinks and the issues before you live together, before you move in together. It's a lot of those things, and I feel it's really underutilized in our community. The resources are out there, but people are still not taking the benefits of seeing a premarital counselor.
Yeah. So what are the benefits you say are for the premarital counselor, and what can we tell our younger audience that, hey, this is how it's going to help you? How does, explain to them, because they've never been. So what to expect when they, let's say, make a booking with you and they come, what should they expect?
Well, it's a huge lifestyle change, right?
Yes.
Marriage is not just, you're moving in together, but you're getting used to someone's habits, someone's lifestyle they're bringing into the marriage as well, too. So those are all good points of discussion, right? How do you deal with someone's habits that you haven't really faced now, head on, where you're waking up to this person every day?
Yeah.
And those things, how do you deal with, the physical space and sharing that with somebody, but more importantly, the emotional space of being with someone, right? Those are all crucial topics that we kind of ignore or we gloss over, and then when we don't really deal with them and we're in marriage mode, these problems kind of come up. And then the premarital counseling, what it does is that it allows you to address these topics, work through them hopefully, so you can have a smooth transition into married life and a happy marriage.
Because usually it's when you're dating somebody, just after a date, you drop them off at home and you're like, bye.
Right.
But when you get married, there's no bye. She's
No.
staying.
Would you recommend young couples, if they're able to live together before they get married? Because I know that's a taboo subject. A lot of
Absolutely, it's huge taboo.
Disagree with that. But I think a lot of parents are now open to that idea too.
Yeah, if it helps, I think so, right? I think living together pre-marriage, I get pushback for this for sure, because it's not a cultural thing that we really do. Yeah. But I think, again, if you get used to somebody, living with them, seeing them at their best and at their worst, sharing that space with them, getting used to their habits, their needs and their wants before actually making a life, hopefully a lifetime commitment. It's very beneficial.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good idea too, Suki, because I think a lot of couples being in the wedding industry,
We
that
hear a lot of stories.
we hear a lot of
Yeah, a
stories,
lot,
and
yeah.
young couples are very idealistic, but not realistic about what married life is going to entail, or
Yeah.
they even haven't given it any thought
You don't think about it.
at all. Like,
Yeah.
I've been in a situation where I'm getting a bride and groom ready for the reception, and this is just one example that comes to mind. Groom is going back to Fort Mac to work, and she is saying, while we're getting her ready for the reception, well, I'm not living with your family. I'm going to stay at my mom and dad's. And now he's like, what are you talking about? Aren't you going to stay with my parents? They're having this conversation for the first time in a room before their wedding reception. And it blows your mind of how naive sometimes couples can be, and being realistic about what married life is going to look like, what someone's habits are. A lot of Indian boys, mommies clean up after them, and then once you come into the picture as the wife, it's expected on you now. Badla kam karo, nare kar vi sambo, and that has to be a conversation I think that a lot of couples should have. I totally recommend couples go for counseling and have. Sometimes they don't even agree on like where they're going to live, how many children they're going to have. These are all important. And where they're going to live. Are they going to live on their own? I think a lot of young men will promise, like, yes, eventually we'll get our own place, and then they get married, and then you're stuck.
And talking about finances too, I
Yes.
think, like saying, hey, okay, are we sharing a bank account? Are we keeping our bank account separate?
Absolutely.
That
If you have
just,
debt, if you have debt.
exactly. Like, if you're coming in with debt, who's paying it off?
Yeah.
Like,
are you coming in with that? Like, that's like you
Yeah.
need to look at your bank accounts,
Exactly.
right? And those are
Absolutely.
things that you have to talk about. Because I think, I was mentioning to Vijay before, I think when the wedding comes, one, it's just assumed that the guy just assumed that she's going to live with me, and then the girls just get into that. Oh, my makeup artist, the decor, the outfits, and I think that becomes the big thing. And after the wedding, how the life is just doesn't.
It's a big letdown. And like
100%.
I followed up with some clients as well that have just reached out, and after the fact, like, they're really, really on this high from the wedding, and it's like unlimited shopping, and
planning.
no budgets, and everything's really grand. You're the center of attention, and then now you move in with your in-laws, and it might be a toxic environment. It might be that the shopping is over.
And wedding debt's a real thing too.
Wedding debts,
Yeah.
Right?
exactly.
That's another source of stress right there for families.
and I think that's a cultural thing too, because our parents usually, like, not our parents, but in general, South Asian weddings especially, they're so grand that the focus is always on the wedding. And when you go to a person's wedding and you're young and you're dating someone, that's all you're dreaming of is, I want a wedding like this. So it becomes about the wedding, but not the marriage.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to discuss everything you're going to do in a marriage before actually planning a wedding.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think that's where premarital comes in.
Going back to Shannon's point about young couples being naive, I totally agree with that. There's also a component of avoidance there too. Right? If you talk about, living arrangements and living with the in-laws or not before marriage, there's a fear that this conversation can rock the boat.
Yep.
Yes.
Right? And then your wedding plans are put on hold because you haven't got your stuff straight yet.
Yeah.
Right?
And a lot of couples, I think, will realize afterwards, that money that we spent on this grand party and the outfits and the limos and the DJ and all that kind of stuff could have been a down payment on on a residence that's going to give you some peace and quiet. And I guess I'm hoping that for like my children, they know that I do not expect them to live with me. And it's just a host of problems. I really believe that distance makes the heart fonder. And
I agree.
be guests when you see each other, host your parents as guests, like still have a close relationship, but like have that privacy and those boundaries in place that you guys can,
Do your own thing.
do your own thing. Like what's going to work in your relationship with your husband is not going to be the same thing that worked with your mother-in-law and father-in-law.
Yeah.
And they can't have that same expectation for you
100%.
as a daughter-in-law.
Yeah, and even going back to Sharon's is that when you get married, before you get married, the daughter, like your parents treat you in a different way. Like you could be your parents' universe. You're a princess of the house. They buy you everything. But when you get married and you go to your in-laws, you're not that same person. That relationship changes. Like, you're not the center of the universe. You're not, you're going to be treated different. You need to do the chores. You need to, whatever. And you need to, like, have that real expectation of what it's going to look like versus, living with your in-laws and living with your parents. Like, life dramatically changes. And the money from the suggin, it only goes so far. Like,
It's a rental because you got to get it back at the next person's wedding.
yeah, it's exactly right.
Oh,
Yeah,
How much do you think it falls on the parents, like not teaching their kids enough about what to expect life after marriage?
It's huge, right? It's a parental responsibility to, tell them about these things. These are big life decisions. But I also think that a lot of parents don't want to talk about those things either, right? Because then it makes them kind of think about their own marriage issues as well, too.
Yeah.
Right? And sometimes parents don't want to hear that. Their kids don't want to hear that because they're like, I see mom and dad, your relationship is shit.
Yeah.
Right? Unfortunately, and I don't want to live like that, so you're not going to hear it from them. Yeah.
Because they don't have the ideal, the perfect relationship that you can use as a role model, right?
Exactly.
And I think too, like maybe it's changing now, but like for my parents' generation, once you had your kids, there is really no relationship. I'm the mom, you're the dad, you go to work.
Yeah.
That interpersonal connection is just not there.
It's not.
And when they see couples now, I don't know if there's just no understanding. Like, why would you need to go out for dinner? And why do you need like a date night?
night.
And, and like, why are you two sitting so close on the couch together? Like, you feel uncomfortable holding your husband's hand in front of like in your in-laws' house, or like cuddling on the couch watching a movie. There's like space.
Or it's kind of like,
And that's why space is needed.
Yeah.
Because you still want to have,
like on this note too, like I read a post, like you were just talking before we started, about posts that really resonated with us. And one thing that really bugs me, and I feel like I would like everyone to really think about who's a parent, who's of a daughter, is that a daughter is expected, she's a guest in her own parent's house, and then
I read that one.
then you leave, and now you're a guest in someone else's house.
So it's never really like
it's never your home.
Yeah.
like you never find a place that you belong to unless it's your own home.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is like, save your money.
Yeah.
Be smart about it. Like, I think Louis Vuitton and YSL is only going to get you so far. Like, it's not going to get you a home. Like, it's not going to get you the peace of mind. And if that's what you want, then you really need to start saving before you get
buy the
there.
house before the Louis Vuitton.
Yeah.
100%,
Louis Vuitton
right?
can come later.
You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Yeah, like, Louis Vuitton will always be there, but like, your sanity, not really. Like, that's how I think.
There's a price to pay, and not to say that it doesn't work for everybody. I know that there's couples that live with in-laws, and we're not here to bash all, like, disclaimer.
Yeah, like, I live with my in-laws,
Yeah.
and I love it. Like,
it works.
15 years, yeah.
And I do feel like if you treat your in-laws like your parents, like if they were to say something to you, this is advice that I usually give to clients as well, because some of them are ready for war, and I don't know if it's just this ingraining or like it's a toxic relationship that's expected fighting, but they get upset about things, and I'll actually say, and Harp will actually say, like, hey, if your mom said this to you, would you get upset?
100%.
And just kind of like let it go.
Yeah.
And that sort of helps, get rid of some of the tutu meme drama.
Exactly, right?
And that
there.
doesn't mean like you're brushing things under the carpet. Anything that needs to be addressed should be addressed. It should be vocalized.
Yeah.
But it's same thing. Like when there's times when like brides will be like, okay, what's your advice? And usually what I say is, don't go in the first day and like next morning you're waking up and you're making everyone cha, you're like doing the dishes, and
Mm-hmm.
if you're not doing that at home.
I've heard
100%.
that.
Go
from
in being
so
you.
many
Set the bar.
people.
Yeah. Don't set the bar too high.
Because
get
as soon as you
clients ready.
stop, it's like, well, what happened?
No, I get clients writing. They tell me set the bar really low.
Yeah.
and I'm like, what? They're like, don't make the jaw. Don't do this. Don't do that, because then they're gonna expect it every
Every
time.
day.
Yeah.
So,
But it's also,
it
I
actually
think,
like made me laugh when
I think
I've heard it from so many girls too.
And I've heard Harp say that, and I do agree with that. You know what? Like, if your mom told you something that you're going somewhere at 8:00 at night, or you're going to watch a movie second time in a week, and she says, "Fair janaya," like, whatever, but you don't get offended. You give your point of view or whatever it is to your mom, and if your mother-in-law says it, why is it any different? Right? It should be the same, because you know what? That's when the relationship builds.
And
Yeah.
vice versa. I feel like,
Yeah.
they say treat your in-laws like your own parents, but when you do that, all of a sudden you're disrespectful. But it's like, I would say that to my own mom or dad,
That's
Yeah.
true.
So-
You have a point there.
Yeah, you
a
have
point
to.
there.
It's vice versa. Like
Yeah.
It's
give and
also-
take, right?
Yeah, like I call my mom with her nickname, and then I do with my mother-in-law. Like, I joke around with her, and then we laugh. Like, you have to actually figure out the balance, what works for your personality and their personality, and it takes time.
Yeah.
Right? It takes time because
And
you
maybe
don't live
have
with
that
them.
conversation with the in-laws before. I've had clients that told me that they sat their in-laws down before getting married and said, "This is how I am. Either accept it or we're gonna have conflicts in the future." So kind of maybe have those conversations before you get married. Is that something that you suggest to couples?
Absolutely. I think we need to talk about values.
Yeah.
We're going back to how girls are treated by their in-laws as compared to their own parents, right? And it's a tough question. It's a tough conversation to have because we never really question our values, right? Especially culturally, they're automatically passed down. You treat this person like that, you treat this person like that. You compartmentalize them, right? If you discuss your core values, like 2 or 3 core values, honesty, empathy, huge in families, right? That we don't even talk about that. If you really value empathy and you live by that authentically, then you will treat people equally, whether it's your daughter or daughter-in-law.
Yeah.
We're not having these conversations, though.
Yeah.
We need to.
We need to have them.
Yeah.
And I think this is what we're doing. And I hope the young couples or whoever is watching, you wanted us to talk about that. So I'm hoping that you guys will watch this and have these conversations with your parents, and that's how the change happens. Like, we can talk about this, we can bring this to surface, because we know these are conversations that are so taboo that nobody wants to have because of the discomfort or how our elder is going to respond to it. But you know what? This is about leaving your comfort zone. If you want to make a change, you have to leave your comfort zone and talk about it and educate. Like I said last time, educating our parents is such an important thing. They're not going to change, but you know what? You educate them onto how to treat people and how to point it out, what you're doing is you're treating my sister and my wife like this, and not at the same time gang up on them. It's all about how your approach is.
But how hard is it when every time you turn on Indian television, the
dramas.
And I swear to God, there's certain dramas that would come out and I would see changes in the way I was treated just because of a storyline, and it's always the daughter-in-law's evil,
Somebody's trying to break the family and the lies and deceit. It's like, and
I want all of those shows to die. They need to end.
I want them to know it's a TV show. It's not a real life.
You guys, I used to watch those when I was younger, and I remember at a young age, I was like, when I start dating, I'm gonna make sure he doesn't have sisters. That was one thing. I was like, he cannot have sisters. At a young age, I was thinking like that.
Yeah.
And then I have conversations with my friends or my cousins and stuff, and we're like, what's worse, him not having sisters or him having brothers and then the sister-in-laws? Because it's not just the sisters. It could. Yeah. There's so many different family members that can be toxic.
Yeah. And I don't know what it is, and I've talked about this at some length. We all have discussed our personal experiences, but and maybe Vijay, you can give some light on this. Why are Indian women so toxic to each other? There is just so much woman on woman
We've kind
hate.
of talked about it, and it's they were treated like that, so now now it's your turn. I was treated
almost
this way.
in the
But
back
even
of their
our
head.
younger generation shouldn't tear each other down. We're about supporting one
Yeah.
another because we all come with this background. We all in South Asia, we all have the same background. So why are we not being empathic towards others? Why not? Right?
Intergenerational trauma, right?
Exactly.
We pass that on. It's I use a metaphor with my clients of a backpack, right? So parents have this backpack of emotional experiences, of traumatic experiences, whatever they have, right, in their life that made them who they are. Once you have children of your own, you can choose to pass that backpack on to them and say, hey, you carry it. You carry that emotional load now. Or you can do your own therapeutic work, take that backpack off, open it, see what works, see what doesn't work. Lighten that load for your kids, right? We don't do that, though. A lot of times we don't do that.
Let's break that toxic cycle, right? Let's
Break
let's
generational
And I think a big part of it too, because I was really thinking about why after 20 years I finally started talking about
I was going to
being
ask
ignored.
what
And
was the driving factor?
I think my mom was treated so badly by her sister-in-laws that I thought my situation and her mother-in-law, not her mother-in-law so much, but sister-in-laws absolutely, that I thought that my situation was so much better that I didn't have the right to complain.
Yeah.
That it wasn't that bad. Just being.
You were justifying that,
Yeah,
right?
it was. It's just you're so used to it. This is normal. I have it so much better than some so and so. It's like that girl who's oh, he only hit me once.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When your dad beats the crap out of you or out of your mom, so you think okay, this is normalized behavior.
Yeah.
But I think once you have your own children, that's a big one where I realized, okay, no, I don't want to, like,
we don't want to teach them.
yeah.
We don't want to carry this
There's-
on.
Or also
Absolutely.
maybe not wanting to cause problems in another household or
Of
being
course, yeah.
responsible for that. So I think a lot of people don't speak up because of that either. They don't want to be labeled as the troublemaker or this is the reason why we have family issues now.
Yeah.
And for
I
some
think-
reason, it always falls on the female because it's
Of
like,
course.
okay, now she's the one talking
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
You know, she won't shut up about everything,
Like, it
and she
could have
has
been
to
happening.
like vocalize everything. And I feel like in our community, people just don't know how to handle a strong personality, especially when it comes from a female figure.
Yeah, and like my husband's been hearing that too.
Yeah.
Like my mother-in-law has said, because I've vocalized like that my sister-in-laws have been really like horrible to me for 20 years and almost pretend like I don't exist. And you know, and her response to it, she hasn't called me, but is to him is like, oh, study base family, the base hundiya. Now, when I was being bestied, it was okay. But now that I'm speaking about being bestied for 20 years, that's the bestie.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you don't see the forest beyond the trees. And like
Yeah.
you're right. Our community does not know how to deal with strong women. It always falls on us to be silent, to be quiet, to be compliant.
They actually praise the ones that are quiet and just take it.
They're
and
the
don't
angels.
say anything. They
Yeah.
are
The ones that are
Oh,
quiet.
They say
boldly,
"Bini
kuch
jangi,
kendi,
kuch
kuch
yeah,
rendi,
yeah.
They're the
They're-
good ones in those shows, right?
Yeah.
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 And I think it speaks to the patriarchy in our community too, right? Again, as a man, I'm gonna probably get backlash for this too, but we have a patriarchal sexist system,
Oh, we do, yeah.
right? And then that's where you find it. You kind of see that, you know, the competition between women as well too. It's like they're at, fortunately, the low end of the totem pole, so they're trying to climb up by climbing over other women,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We could accomplish so much more just being together. Like families who, like you see it in different cultures, like you can invest together, create investment groups where I feel like in Indian families, and especially being in the wedding industry and seeing so many family dynamics, like brothers are pitted against each other. They're competing, you know, sisters are competitive with each other. And I do catch people comparing their children. Like if
To
someone
other-
accomplishes
all
something,
the
they'll be like,
time.
so-and-so's kid, they know their Uda Ara and like Gurbani
Yeah.
and everything. Like your
Happens all
kid
the
could have
time.
an A in science, but they're going to throw that right back at you and compare you to someone else. And that's constant behavior in our community. And that has to stop.
Yeah.
Like whatever your child is, whoever your child is, you know, you can foster their skills. They can be individuals. Not everybody has to be an engineer or doctor. You can have, you know, like have them follow a career in music or, you know, arts or something, and it'll be okay. Like just let them be at their own pace and stop comparing between children.
But I think it's their thing is they want to highlight the negativity because they want to talk about what so and so's kid lacks. And I think it's also for that insecurity that
It makes them feel good.
Yeah.
About where they are in life.
where they are in
Yeah.
life, because, you know, and it just kind of like, but why?
That actually
That's
just
somebody's
happened to
child.
me like 2 weeks ago. I had an auntie come over, and her daughter is like a doctor now or something, and she was indirectly putting me down for not having like that degree or whatever, the higher education that her daughter has. And I'm like, well, you know, I'm okay with what I have. I'm successful. I have my own business. And then I felt like I was kind of proving myself to her, but I was like, I don't need to.
You're justifying yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, the key to happiness is sanuki,
Yeah.
tenuki.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
seriously.
exactly.
Those
Yeah.
two keys.
But
That's
it's-
all you need.
Yeah, and it's also, I mean, your daughter can be successful being a doctor, yet you're successful doing what you're doing. So it's kind of like we can all be successful doing what we
In
like.
different ways.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And what we like. It doesn't have to be the same. Like, I mean, if everybody started being doctors, like, good Lord, like, where's going to be patients?
But that's the thing, and that's another thing about Indians. We all do the same thing.
Yeah, we do.
Somebody has a berry farm. Everybody's gonna get like
Right.
everybody
It's
else
a
is gonna plant that
competition.
same blueberry. You know what I mean? And doctors, lawyers, engineers. That's why we're famous around the world for being like a smart bunch.
Yeah.
But there is a lot of that just like keeping up with the Joneses.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's the root of so much unhappiness, including financial happiness.
Yeah.
If somebody has like a $3 million house, and somebody's like, well, I want to build a $4 million house to like
Upping everyone.
everyone,
Yeah.
you know, and I feel like as a community, we really need to take a minute to step back and stop being so driven about like things and start really be driven about experiences. We only have such a short time in this life, and we work so much, and then, something happens tragically and life is over.
Oh, yeah.
And what is it all for?
Yeah.
You know?
It's true.
Now, going back to couples getting married. So a lot of the times, we were talking that couples are constantly like they've set a date and now they're okay. Well, we need this vendor. We need the best vendors. We need they don't care about money. Money's not an issue. And half the times, there's a lot of times I feel, yes, couples are contributing financially towards their wedding, but that's not always the case. Sometimes these couples are driving their parents with second mortgages now because they want that $200,000 wedding. And I've heard so much of that where parents are taking on more loans. And I think as a couple, a couple that's going to get married, maybe that's something you need to sit down with your husband or husband to be your fiance, and you need to talk. Hey, okay, so what are we paying for, and what are our parents paying for? What is a budget? And I think setting a budget is so important.
Yeah.
It is.
Right. So
especially COVID should have taught us that one thing of what is really important in life.
Yeah.
And even now, being able to have 50 people wedding, it's like, oh my God, we're allowed to have 50 guests. It's amazing.
It is such a big
and then
thing,
you really think okay, is there really a need to have 1,000 people at your wedding reception?
Yeah.
You should
Come on,
know
guys.
every single person at your wedding.
Absolutely. And I've been hung out with them at least in the last year.
Yeah.
So that cuts my circle to maybe 200 max.
Yeah.
And that should be, I feel like that should be your people that love you rather than just your gaha.
And I also feel like these kids need that tough love. If you want a wedding that's like $500,000, the parent should be like, you know what, I'm sorry. You know what, you can't. You should know in this day and age, how hard it is to have that much of money. Just step back and look at your parents. They've raised you, they've done everything for you, and now you want them to take out a second mortgage and pay that off while you move on with your life, and you leave them with
Raj,
that.
it's not just kids.
It's not.
It's
It's the
parents
parents
as
too.
well.
It's absolutely
more
the
than the
parents. They're the
kids,
ones
actually.
financing it. They can say no.
Yeah.
Again, talk about healthy boundaries, right?
Yeah.
What is a healthy boundary? If your kid's asking for $200,000 wedding, and you can't afford it,
That's like
There,
a
I know
Like,
clients
you know?
who have said, "I'll take the down payment,"
And the
and
parents
the parents
are
said,
like,
"No,
no.
you either have the reception or nothing." That to me is that's harsh.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's a good decision.
Yeah.
And I think getting into when we're talking about finances as well, if Pinder and I had never bought our first home, we wouldn't be in the financial situation that we are in. Vancouver real estate has allowed a lot of couples to build and sell homes.
Yeah.
And you're able to secure your retirement like that.
Yeah.
If we never did, it would have made a huge difference
Yeah.
on our finances. But we were discouraged. My father-in-law did not want us to move out.
Yeah.
But I also was, wasn't allowed to really, nothing was being, I was just expected to accept the way I was being treated,
Yeah.
coming home,
Not
no
vocalize.
one would speak to me.
Yeah.
No, pretend you're a ghost, and then I would want to do things to the house and change them, and it would be a problem. There'd be a huge fight. And when it wasn't me, I would change something, I would do it myself, pay for it myself, but my sister-in-law would have a problem with it. But then when it came to their weddings, or when my mother-in-law would want to change the house, then it was fine. There was so much hypocrisy that eventually, I 2 years into our marriage, I left.
Yep.
And I've had so many people message me saying, I had to give Pinder an ultimatum. Either come with me, I can't live here. I already left my family for you because the caste issue,
Yeah.
and I can't live here. So you either come with me and start your life, start a real life, or you can stay here.
Yeah.
And so many couples, the men stay.
Yeah.
And
They choose
the marriage is over.
Yeah.
And I feel like that you need to have the foundation with your spouse, be your wife or your husband, is that have a strong foundation and always have your wife's back or your husband's back. And I'm not saying even when they're wrong, get out of the situation and take your wife in a room or your husband and be like, hey, you know what? I supported you, but I think you were wrong, or or you could have said it this way, or your approach was a different. So you know what?
Yeah.
But I supported you because you're my spouse, and that's what we do in a marriage. Because you're together in a marriage. A wife is just not on her own, or a husband's not on her own.
And I think couples counseling should extend from not only just the couple, but since it's families getting married to each other, that
Absolutely.
maybe take your, I would love to go to therapy with my sister-in-laws, you know what I mean? And just
I wanna
talk
be a fly
about,
on the wall.
just to talk about
Yeah.
hey, this happened, or maybe I said something, I asked someone to move their car, and they're like,
Yeah.
well, why would you ask me to move your car?
Yeah.
Little things build up.
Yeah.
It's not the little things, it's something bigger beyond that are triggering issues.
Yeah.
Let's find out what the issues are
Yeah.
and work on it. But but I think having that conversation, I feel is nails on a chalkboard.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to talk about that there's a problem.
Yeah.
It's
Nobody
like,
wants to
"Chup rao,
acknowledge the
here's a cup of
elephant in the room."
cha, sab kuch theek ho ju, bas,
Yeah.
band raho.
Yeah.
I think the hardest conversations are the best ones to have.
Absolutely.
Because once you're out of your comfort zone,
Yeah.
it's not a big thing. You know, people will listen. There will be empathy. It's not, and I think our older generation is just scared. लड़ाई ना होवे. बस लड़ाई
That's
रैंदो,
all
तुसी
they're
रैंदो.
scared of.
And
Yeah.
that's all it is.
Yeah.
But then
They're
they
so
hold
afraid of
so much
conflict.
resentment, like
Because they don't have- they don't speak,
They
right?
don't speak, and then there's just so much hate because it's like, okay, well, and then when something comes up, it's like, well, 20 years ago you said this to me, and it's like, why are you dragging something that happened 20 years
Because
ago
it
now?
was never
There was never a
resolved.
closure.
It was never
from-
resolved, right?
There was
Yeah.
it was never resolved, and now they're holding this like
Grudge.
hate
Yeah.
and grudge. And I just think in extended families also, I find like, okay, when you're like if you're moving in with your in-laws, I think it's important to like they should also respect that you and your husband or you and your like your wife and you need
Discuss
your
boundaries.
yeah, and you guys need your space. And sometimes like couples bicker, right? Every couple bickers, and
Not
I feel
come running like, are you guys okay?
yeah,
Are you
it's like,
fighting?
because even walls have ears, and I
Yeah.
feel like when you're starting to, okay, now they're bickering, well, let me go check what's going on, because
Yeah.
now you're just adding fuel to the fire, and then things just get bigger. So I feel like knowing, okay, hey, if we're gonna have an argument, if we get married and we're living with your parents and we have an argument, like, are they going to be stepping in every single time?
Yeah.
Like, like knowing where the
Or it could
how
go
are we
both
resolving?
ways. Or you could want their help.
Yeah.
Like, help me, and then
And they're
them
not offering it.
Yeah, turning
Yeah.
away, saying, "Sorry, we're not going to get involved."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that's hard too when you ask for the help and they say we don't want to get involved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And that's where therapy comes in,
Yeah.
right? You
Yeah.
have a mediator that's not biased
Yeah.
to either,
Yeah.
either member or either partner in the marriage,
Yeah.
right? If you have parents mediating, that's fine. They're doing it a lot of times out of kindness and don't want to have don't want to rock the boat at home.
Yeah.
But I think if you have like someone who's trained in that and providing a safe space, listening with empathy,
Yeah.
no judgment,
Yeah.
it was a much longer way.
And I
So,
thi-
sorry, Vijay. So going back to so now you're saying I agree. Get counseling, but how do you take someone to counseling? How do you bring
do
that
at-home counseling?
Yeah, do you because there's parents who are like, why? Asikate jaye,
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong with us. Why should we go to a counselor? Why should we come with you? Or even like I find men in our community, they have big
They're really
egos,
defensive.
and it's just, oh no, I have no problem. I'm not going to counseling. Why would I go to
Or they
counseling?
won't see a female,
Yeah.
or they want a South Asian, or there's very few South Asian males. So I
Yeah.
think your phone is gonna
Yeah.
ring off the hook now. No excuse, guys. We have
Yeah.
you have a brother here who understands
Yes.
in your situation.
Yeah.
Married 8 years. Come
Almost
talk,
10.
almost 10 years,
10,
almost a
yeah.
decade, and
Yeah.
it's made it. So seek therapy. And I think that a lot of people, when you have to face your demons and you're not holding on to other background stuff and you're talking to a therapist, you really have to drop the act and face your actions.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of
brutally
Indian people just don't want to do that.
Because it's painful. Because you're going to uncover a lot of
It's like,
unresolved,
you're
painful
feeling
stuff there.
There's so many layers.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And with growth comes, resistance, tension, friction. Those things are painful. But if you don't go through them and resolve them in a healthy, safe place, then they're going to linger.
Yeah.
And then they come out as microaggressions,
Yeah.
passive aggressive behavior, all
Yeah.
those things, right?
And I
That's the
think
worst.
It's also
Yeah.
when you hear yourself speak, and then you also realize that maybe it wasn't that bad, and I was holding it. Because I think once you hear yourself,
Mhm.
you're just like,
You're right, totally.
it's okay. It's not that bad, but now you're in front of a therapist, and you're like, oh my god, like all
Am
this
I
years-
crazy?
Yeah, like
You're kind of like,
yeah,
am
like-
I? Yeah.
Yeah, because I am. It's not that bad. Why was I holding on to? Because I think once you hear yourself, and that's the reason why most of them don't say anything, is because when you start talking, you actually hear yourself complaining about something that was just so minute, and you didn't need to, make a mountain out of a mole, right?
Yeah.
And
What
then,
are
But this is
some-
the chance to
Yeah.
figure out what's behind it, what's driving this behavior
What
and
are some of
anger.
the most common topics that people come to you with, so that people know like what they can come to you with to talk about? Because a lot of people are like, do I need counseling? Is this a big enough issue? Is this too small?
Communication is key. That's the one I get a lot with clients, is that people don't know how to even, like, I wouldn't say argue properly, but there's rules in argument and discussion as well too, right?
Yeah.
You have one person that's passive, one person that's more dominant. And then you have, throw in the, the patriarchy as well too, right? Male dominance and that kind of thing as well too. And you get this fractured, really damaged pattern of communication. And when people don't communicate, relationship goes to crap, right? Because
Yeah.
that's key for any relationship.
For South Asian communities, I think it could be language too, because your Punjabi might not be as fluent as your in-laws. So how do you communicate with them? How do you tell them how you feel?
I find that
You know,
tough.
like in Punjabi, because now you're like, okay, like you can't be like, how do you say, okay, I didn't like that you did this and this and this because this makes me feel this way, because then you're trying to now translate this into
And it gets
Punjabi,
lost in
and it's
translation.
like, okay,
Yeah.
you know, because then I've like gone through that where I'm like, no, that's not what I mean, and you know, and then you're just like trying to explain
yeah.
yourself, and then you're like, you know what, forget it,
Mm-hmm.
like let's just not even talk about this, and then again, it's getting brushed under the carpet, right?
Yep.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's a lot of Punjabi speaking counselors out there, right? Not so many men so far. Hopefully that changes, but there are Punjabi speaking counselors out there. People can see them. But again, it takes, us to break down that stigma first of
Yeah.
seeing a counselor because something is quote unquote wrong with you.
Yeah.
Everyone's got
Or
issues.
ਘਰ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਘੱਟ ਤੇ ਰੱਖੀ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ. But
Right,
there's also the confidence factor.
Yeah.
I mean, counselors don't, as soon as you leave, they're not going to call your relative and be like,
I was
"Oh,
just gonna
see."
say that a lot
Yeah.
of people don't want to go see Punjabi counselors because they're afraid you might be related to somebody because we're all related somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what if like our problems get aired out? What if
Yeah.
somebody finds out? What
Yeah.
if they? But just maybe assure them that you know.
But I think
There's
like
code of ethics there, right?
There's a
Okay.
code of ethics
I
and
think everybody-
confidentiality is key in that, right? And we
But
can't.
it got you guys. This happens in almost every single house. It's the
Yeah.
same.
Yeah.
And by like maybe taking a flashlight on this dark corner and everybody sees like there's this
Yeah.
monster in the corner, like let's deal with it.
Yeah.
Like let's not keep hiding it or pretending like our lives are perfect or not talking
Yeah.
about issues. There's a lot that has to be done in regards to how we treat each other and our relationship with one another, and especially when it comes to the role of like a woman in the house.
Yeah. And I also think, like, you know what? Let's worry about what's going on in our own house. Let's not worry about what's going on the next door neighbor or what the next door neighbor is thinking, because it's like our house is falling apart. Our relationships are falling apart. Let's focus on that.
But it's easier to focus on somebody else because you're avoiding again.
Right.
You're avoiding your own
Because
issues. Let's focus on that person because I don't want to think about my own issues.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
kind of like, no, let's take a look at ourselves. Like, let's have that conversation with our spouse or our moms or dad or our siblings.
And
that
just
be like,
learning
"What?"
to say we're not perfect.
Oh, yeah,
You know,
100%.
your family, and I find a lot of, and I've seen this, a lot of like auntia I know, and like including family, women in the family I have seen, it's like they just want to portray my kids are perfect. My daughter-in-laws are perfect. There's no issues in our household. And they're so quick to talk about other
Yeah.
people's children. And it's like, okay, no, hold on. Let's step back. And if you don't have anything to say, just don't say anything at all.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
just,
just keep your opinions to
let's
yourself.
not, because once you start opening that door for other people to be like, okay, hold on, but your daughter-in-law does this and your son does this, and then it's like, okay, now it's a big issue, right?
Yeah.
So
It's just, you know what, and our parents taught us that if you have nothing nice to say,
Yeah.
just don't say anything.
Yeah.
Right? And no need to, like, somebody messaged, one of the viewers messaged, and they're like, we get that, like, oh, tu halle bhi piya nahi hoya tera, tusi baby nahi lana. What is it to you?
or you have a baby, or are you having another one? Like,
Yeah.
I have 2 daughters, and I've been asked multiple times, are you gonna, when are you trying for your third? I'm like, I don't want a third.
Yeah.
I don't want it, because it's indirectly saying, are you going to try for a boy?
Yeah.
If I mean, once upon a time, I wanted 4 kids. Having my second one, she is wild, and I can't imagine myself with another kid. So my husband and I have talked about this, and like, are we content with 2 children? Yes, we are, and so I feel like, okay, then who are you? Who is this auntie related to, like, so and so and so, to ask, oh, are you having another kid? None of your business. Like,
Boundaries. Boundaries.
Boundaries.
Boundaries.
Yeah.
Boundaries are key.
There's no boundaries.
And
We
there
should all get
needs
that
to
on
be-
t-shirts. Boundaries.
There needs to be boundaries, like, and it's just kind of like, that brings us to infertility. What if some couples are having infertility issues and
Right.
they're not going to tell you, and these aunties are just so like thinking that, oh, koi ਗੱਲ ਆ
Yeah.
ਤੈਨੂੰ ਕਿੰਨਾ ਚਿਰ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ ਵਿਆਹ ਨੂੰ
ਤੈਨੂੰ ਕੀ?
ਪਰ auntie ਤੈਨੂੰ
Yeah.
ਕੀ? Right, like,
Yeah.
what is it to you? Like, you need to learn to, and you know what, tell your moms, tell your dads that, you know what, it's a private matter with that person and whatever is going on in their life, because you don't know what's happening, and so let's just not touch that topic that has nothing to do with us. That has, the auntie, you have your grandkids, go play with them, go
Yeah.
enjoy them.
Go spend some quality time.
Yes, and just stop wasting hours. Like, I think that's such an important thing to have that.
And I think that's and you know, if you are a couple that is going through problems like that, and you're already struggling, you're emotionally so messed up, and you already, as a female, you already think there's something wrong with you. So to have, to go to an event and the first thing someone asks is, oh, now you've been married for like 5 years or 6 years, like, why aren't you having kids? Or like being told, oh, you're selfish, that's why you're not having more kids, or you're not having kids. But they don't realize, or like I know women who only have the one child, and now their children are 8, 9, 10, 11 years old, and they're not able to get pregnant again. And it's like, well, why did you just stick to one kid? Why aren't you having another one? Oh, don't you feel bad for your child because now your child is an only child? But they don't. And then they're just like digging this, like, that hole you already have, they're just digging deeper into
It's
it.
negotiable, man. It's
Yeah.
like, it's, always seeing the negative. And that's another thing about our kind of Punjabi cultural mindset. Not everyone, but there is a very negative undertone to everything.
Yeah.
It's either baad janda, or you're like, okay, moti hogi,
Yeah.
kat janda,
Yeah.
fir tu like, tu
Yeah.
maadi hogi. Has anybody ever heard saying, "Ha, tu soni lagdi hun"?
Yeah.
Like, "Hun teri sehat changi hai." No,
Yeah.
like this, the rare gem of a person is like, you look nice today.
Yeah.
Everybody else has an opinion on like what is wrong with you.
Yeah.
I had a friend who had 3 kids, so they had like one after the other, and then the auntie like, "Bas karo hona." So
Oh
you
my
have
God.
those.
You don't- there's
You
no
have
win.
There's no win.
The
There's
coach,
no
man.
win.
Gotta have get
those,
the,
and
put
then
the
you
comment
have
in.
Yeah.
baby line, and then when they're having, they're like, "Oh, bas karo hona," and you're
Yeah.
just kind of like, "Oh my gosh."
Yeah.
Or even
So
the
the-
pressures of getting married. I sometimes get clients ready, like the older sister who is going to her younger brother's wedding or her younger sister's wedding,
Oh, that's
and
the worst.
anxiety that she has going into the events because she knows what's gonna come. Like, oh, why aren't you you're, it's so bad.
Yeah.
तू भी ब्याह कर ला होना, की गल होगी.
तेरा भी time
And
हो गया.
everyone's ready at a different time.
Exactly. There's no timeline.
There's no timeline. Yeah.
Marriage is already so hard. Like,
Yeah.
and I do feel like some couples go into it. They're like, oh, okay, I'm 30 now and had to settle. So I've had clients say that, like,
Yeah.
maybe not that age, but they'll say, yeah, I had to settle. And
A lot of
like, I'm not in
people
love with
say
this
that,
guy,
yep.
but it'll do. And
Yeah.
like, do you want to go to
Yeah.
the airport? Like, are you
Yeah.
okay right
you
now?
do realize
Like,
this is your entire life. Yeah.
And it's toxic in a sense where I've had messages where they're like, I've been married for 10 years, 11 years, we have 2 kids. I hate my husband because, I told him to move out and we're living with the in-laws. I have 2 kids and I hate my husband, but I'm just here for my kids. And that's just like,
that's very common. That's so
right,
common.
and
I know
that-
so many people that are
what
in
do you
that
have to say
situation.
about that?
Well, we're focusing a lot on women's experiences, but I think, as a man, it's also challenging as well, too.
Yes.
A lot of times when you have that in-law issue, the guy's the mediator between his wife and his parents.
Yeah.
He never asked for that.
No.
A lot of times, right? I mean, so you're kind of navigating the relationship between how to keep my wife happy, how do I keep her,
Yeah.
right? And then how do I keep my parents happy at the same time? And it's hard because you have these 2 opposing sides that are probably clashing on a bunch of issues.
And you love them both.
You need to somehow bring it all together so everyone's happy. But their happiness is not really entirely your responsibility either,
Yeah.
right? And that's where family counseling can come in if people are open to it, like not just couple counseling, but open it up to the family.
Yeah, I had
Right.
somebody reach out and she said that her husband couldn't choose, so he took his life.
Yeah, it's immense pressure, right?
Yeah,
Huge
so,
pressure.
I can't live without you. I can't live without them. So I'm, goodbye, and I can't live without either one of you. So I'm going to take my life.
Mhm.
Like, I never really thought of it that way because as women, we get so stuck into our own battles, and we have so much to deal with already. Yeah, being, you're right. Being put into the middle and having to play mediator when it's not what you asked for. And is anybody even asking that poor guy what makes him happy?
Yeah.
Never.
And
He's got all
what-
sides, getting it from all sides,
Yeah,
you know?
and that's the conversation Vijay and I had yesterday. It's just like, what? We focus so much on women that we don't acknowledge men. And my thing is, I want to acknowledge men and be like,
Yeah.
hey, what is your issue? What do you, and so that's why it's such an excellent thing to have a male expert that, so what should a guy do? Like, what would you tell a male that's stuck in that heart in a rock place that
Tug and war.
how do you step out of that toxicity, because that affects them, and the suicide rate in men is like 72%, right? So like, how do we go about that? Like, how do we tell the guys, hey, you know what, it's okay, talk about it? Because guys usually bottle up their feelings,
Yeah.
right? And they,
Yeah.
because they've been taught that you're the strong one.
Right.
So
Right.
you know, and then they take that. So I think
Yeah.
it's about time we break that cycle, just to be like, oh, you're tough, suck it up. But
Mm-hmm.
no, but they're also human.
Yeah, you're
And
a
it's
man.
okay to get help,
Yeah.
right? When
Yeah.
when you're kind of stuck in that situation, seek help. Take care of yourself.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, you're gonna be, you're gonna try to medicate yourself through other things, right? Whether it's gonna be alcohol, drugs, violence towards your partner or towards your kids,
Yeah.
right? Those things, if the pressure is built up, it's got to come out somehow.
Yeah.
You got to find a healthy outlet,
Yeah.
right? And that's where therapists come in. It's like, we can give you a healthy outlet. It starts with taking care of yourself, but then, and then you put up your boundaries, and maybe boundaries with your partner, boundaries with your family as well too, your parents as well too, right?
Yeah.
I think the boundaries is key, and that's why so many people overstep them with their comments in our community, and there's so many problems with expectations with family. It all comes down to boundaries, and I find that when you set up those boundaries for yourself, from my own experiences, people will treat you differently.
Yeah.
If you demand respect, then people will, they might have a problem with it at first, and
But then, yeah.
have their choice
Yeah.
words to say,
Yeah.
but when they come back to you in that relationship, they either have to meet you on your level or not meet you at all.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that's not taught to a lot of women, and it's
Yeah.
so important for your mental well-being.
We're taught
Yeah.
to be people pleasers. Don't
Yeah.
know
100%.
why,
Especially
Some-
South
Yeah.
Asian girls.
Yeah, and I think that we don't need to be the people pleaser, and we have to learn to voice your opinions. And I saw a video, and I really want to talk about this. Is where that I put it up on the Roundtable IG of this girl saying that the biggest bullies we have is our parents, and they never apologize. They never say sorry.
They really
And you know what?
don't.
They don't, because you know what? And she went on to say that my mom puts me down, which is true. Like, your mom's always tenu ani onda, tenu oni onda, tu kado si kana, and they also have
They
choice
also
of swear words that they want to
there are
use.
some parents too that don't want their children to grow as a sense of control,
Yeah.
to have that control over them,
Yeah.
to make them feel stupid,
Yeah.
little, ugly, because
Always
they don't
dependent on them.
Yeah.
always dependent on them, and that's such a toxic. I had that relationship, and it was
and
horrible.
They won't,
Yeah.
And they won't apologize, but they'll bring you like cha pila. Do you think that will make it okay? Like, you've just and time after that, it does something to your self-respect and your confidence, because you start to believe that you are incapable of doing
And I think it's a
something.
generational thing where they also
Yeah.
were treated that way
Yeah.
because of their parents. Like, I'm sure their parents never apologized to
Yeah.
them.
And
And they were
to-
treated a lot worse.
Yeah.
So to them, like, not saying sorry is just like, oh, like, you just didn't get a sorry, like,
Yeah.
but I give you all, everything else.
Yeah, but it's
So-
kind of like, tenu ala ta taki hoy je मैं कहता, but that's not okay. So I think we need to tell our moms and
Yeah,
our-
talk to them, have those
talk to them and just be
conversations.
like, it's affecting my confidence. When you say that, I feel that I'm not good for you. I'm not going to be good, and that I'm going to grow up with that. And then
But
what,
confidence is discouraged, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like I don't
100%.
know what Punjabi people think that if a girl grows up confident, "Enu ki ho ju."
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's that traditional power imbalance between parents and kids, right?
Yeah.
It's like the parents can do whatever, say whatever, and you can't talk back to your parents, or you
Yeah.
can't question them because we're at different we're at a different level in terms
Yeah.
of the power imbalance, right?
And it's always, but the respect. And it's
Right.
like, okay, but like, and I've had arguments over this because I'm like, I understand they're older in age, but they're socially, like, the thinking they have is like way below mine.
Yeah.
And it's like, they should be called out on it, because how dare they say something like this? Because that's not appropriate. You shouldn't be saying things like this. And then
don't
it's
you,
like,
and don't you find that being a parent now that your kids are teaching you things?
Oh my God, yes.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then I think to myself too, like, well, my kids are learning, like, teaching me things, and I'm learning from them, and I'm growing as a person. But did our parents give us that opportunity to do that for them?
No.
No.
And it wasn't there for a lot of us.
And largely it's because they were immigrants, right? They came here and they were struggling and just trying to make something out of nothing, right? So I mean, but that's for a large part that's done.
It is.
It's
done.
like, and now immigration is, I wouldn't say it's easier than it was back in, when my parents came in the early 70s, but more doors are open now.
Yeah.
You don't have to struggle as much, right? I think parents can take more time to be with their kids.
Absolutely.
Address that power imbalance and raise your kids with a sense of empathy and kindness.
Yeah, and
Right.
some take it as an insult, like, "Oh, hun tusi mainu sikhona hai."
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I get that all the time.
And then you're just kind of like, I'm not trying to teach you. I'm just trying to tell you there's a better way of doing. There's so many ways of doing one thing or what you're saying, and we're just trying to teach you saying a nice way of saying
Like,
things.
we have X
So-
number of years
Yeah,
on you.
yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
it's like I'm not trying to give you akal. I know you have enough, but like it just ways of saying
Perspective.
things. Yeah,
A change of perspective.
100%. And you know what? We're not in India anymore. We were just talking before that there's a reason why we moved here for the better life. So let's start to accept the life, not Canada na changa hai, chalo chaliye. But you know what? You have to also take the good things of Canada, and I'm not saying completely forget India, but I'm saying take the good values from there, take the good values from here, and marry them together. And I think
Create a
that's-
better society.
100%. I think that will create a better society. And I also want to touch on double standards when you were saying about women, is that a guy can yell at the mom and the dad, but when a girl does it, ta comes, right? Like a thappad or whatever, tu boldi bota, yeah. But then I think that needs to stop. Like, why is it the guy comes home at 3 a.m, the mom will make him parothe, but the girl comes, she needs to make those parothe and shittar and won't hear the rest of it for like a week. But like, we need to stop that. Like, teach
But
your
that's the
sons.
patriarchy, the double standards, and like
That's
really,
just the values, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
And
like
we have
in India, it used to make sense. Like even like living
Yeah.
with in-laws, I find now too. Like in India, the wealth would be passed down to the sons. The sons stay together and take care of the parents. So there was a financial reason for how it's all set up. But now, and the women they took care of the home but didn't contribute financially at all. But now we have careers. Some cases we're finding, women are making more than their partners, but there still has this nonsensical hierarchy that was put in place like 100 years ago.
Yep.
That made sense back then, but doesn't make sense right now. So there has to be a change in like responsibilities, and people have to really like ki hoju if you treat like couples, a boy and a girl, equally.
Yeah.
That's
Even
where it all
something,
has to
like,
start.
So dumb. Like my grandma was over a month ago, and I was wearing shorts. It was a really hot day, and she's like, "Oh my God, you went out like that, like with your legs showing." Like, and then she looks at my mom like, "You don't tell her anything. Like, you don't stop her from wearing shorts." And then, so funny. Like 10 minutes later, my brother walks in wearing shorts, and I'm like, "Well, aren't you gonna say anything to him now? He's wearing shorts." She's like, "He's allowed to." I was like, "But how, like what? I don't get it."
And it needs to stop. It's not.
But they're not going to change their thinking. You kind of
But
just
I
have
think
to.
you have to. I don't think we should accept it. I think we need to educate it. I get it. It's been happening for so long, but I'm not about somebody that's like, let's not accept that behavior. Let's tell Bibi garmi hai.
No, she's not going to listen.
Yeah, but
She's not going to listen.
I know, but
Bala, gotcha.
Yeah.
you can wear shorts too. Yeah. But like, Shannon, like going back to like what you were saying, like now as women we are career driven. We're working and taking care of the kids, taking care of the household. So and if your husband is now helping you around the house, or you're saying, hey, and some boys to men are now growing up, mommy's doing everything. They're being served like their food in like at the table in this like silver platter.
Yeah.
So,
And
like
it's
I've had arguments with my mom because
Yeah.
she's come over and she'll either see Chandan mowing the lawn or emptying the dishwasher,
Yeah.
and she's like, "Hi ni munda ki karda ya?"
Yeah.
Or like I'm teaching him how to cook. Like he's going to be in university in a couple years. I don't want him to have takeout all the time. Like he needs to know how to cook. And like my mom will call my mother-in-law up, and I told you guys this.
Yeah.
And she'll say like, "Pritam jaake roti fadaya, munde bhukhe marde hone ya, Shannon ਉਹਨਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਰੋਟੀ ਬਣਵਾਉਣੀ ਆ." And I'm like,
Yeah.
this is my own mom. Like I'm
Yeah.
trying to teach them how to be real bande.
Yeah.
Good partners.
Good partners.
Self-sufficient,
Yeah.
and like ਚੱਜ ਦੇ ਹੋਣ come on. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
right,
I'm not going to do everything
you don't
for
want
them.
someone else's daughter suffering because
Yeah.
you didn't teach them. And then that's when resentment from the daughter-in-law comes, because it's like, well, you couldn't teach your kid.
Yeah, but I do find, and I do have other cultural friends though, and I still do more than my white friends do for their kids, or my
Yeah.
Asian friends do for their kids.
Yeah.
My kids are the most coddled.
Yeah.
And they know, like, just get straight A's, we'll handle everything for you.
Yeah.
And I have to really bite my tongue and be like, no, I'm not doing them a service.
Yeah.
I'm actually teaching them to be lazy and have a sense of entitlement. And don't do that to your kids, because that's a huge problem in our community.
It's
Boys
stifling
or
their
girls?
growth, pretty much.
It
It's
does stifle their
stifle their growth, right? Let them learn these skills and
Yeah.
be autonomous, right? I think
But the autonomy is so like looked down upon. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Or even
it
for
is.
men. Like,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
You got to listen to your parents, stay with your parents,
Mhm.
don't buy your own place, you know, fanganalagdana type of thing.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
And
Yeah.
like that's the opposite, I think, of what needs to happen in our community.
And men can do everything we can do.
Yeah.
Like they have the ability to cook, to clean,
Yeah.
to be organized, to, do it all. Like take care of your kids. Like I get a lot of, wow, you're so lucky. Like your husband can he can stay with the kids all day. And I'm like, they are his kids.
Yeah.
Like if he wasn't able to all day and not be able to feed them, like
Yeah.
he could
They
be
call
throwing
it babysitting.
Yeah, but he could be
They do.
throwing snacks at them all day long and be like, okay, here's a bunch of cookies. But he's doing it.
Yeah.
And I'm never gonna step in and be like, well, you did this wrong, because you know what? I'm just happy that he can keep them for like 12 to 18 hours if I needed to, or longer. But I always get, oh wow, you're so lucky that he's so hands-on, and I'm like, no, what do you mean I'm lucky? Like he's not doing me a favor.
Yeah.
He chose to have these kids with me. He is my partner, and we made this decision together. If I can take care of them, he should be able to too. And then I think even like when it comes to changing diapers and that kind of stuff, a lot of females think, oh no, it's my responsibility, and then that's when you start driving yourself insane, because now you're doing way more than what you're capable of.
Yeah.
Plus you're working, cooking, cleaning, the groceries. There's never like, okay, hey, how about you do this? You
Yeah.
know, how about, and then
It's a
as
lot.
soon as you ask, it's like, then you have
Society's
someone
also
mother
conditioned
or
us to think that way.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
like you see it in like books and movies and whatever you watch.
Yeah.
Everywhere you just see like the mom doing all of that, being the caretaker.
Mm-hmm.
It's everywhere. We're just so conditioned to think a certain way
Yeah.
that like sometimes I'll even like catch myself thinking like, oh, he's doing that. But I'm like, wait, but like what's the problem
Yeah.
with that?
Yeah. And I
You
think
know?
that's really a good conversation to have before you get married,
Mm-hmm.
is to be like, you know what? I'm not going to go to work, come home, make dinner, do the laundry, clean, cook, vacuum, everything. Like, what's your strongest point and what's my strongest point?
One of you is a better cook. One of
Yeah.
you is better at doing laundry.
Yeah.
Like figure it out and like
Figure it
split
out.
the responsibility.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing, and you know what?
I always tell my kids too, when I'm teaching them to do something, I'm like, do you want your wife to yell at you?
You'll
And they're
thank
like,
me
no.
later.
And then I'm like, okay, well then, make your bed properly.
Yeah.
So this is what's going to happen to you. You're going to have fights with your spouse the way that mom and dad get into it sometimes.
Yeah.
Like pick them up the table and take them to the sink yourself.
Yeah.
Like
And you're just teaching them to be responsible.
Yeah.
You're just teaching them to be clean and not to, hoard everything when they move out to university or wherever, and to be able to take care of themselves in the little day-to-day activities, right? And who wants to, you're paying for their education, one thing, and then now you're paying for their groceries, their eat out, and I think it just needs to stop. Let's let the kids
grow.
be kids,
Yeah.
but with responsibilities.
Yeah.
Teach them responsibility at young age, and that's when they get used to it. This is what I need to do. This is, and you know what? And it's muscle memory, right? You teach them, and then when they'll see something, they'll just pick it up and do it because you've instilled it in them, right? So I think those are the conversations that are really important to have, and not to frown on anybody that is trying to teach their child
Oh, yeah.
good mannerism.
Yeah.
Right? And I think mannerism is a big thing for me. Like, please, thank yous, excuse me. Those are huge things. And you need to teach that to your child, even adults.
I think respecting women too, in our
Oh,
culture.
yes.
My
Oh my
kids,
gosh, yeah.
Jonathan's getting to the age where there's girls involved, and
Yeah.
and I've had to have a conversation with them, when you go out, I want you to pull a chair out, open doors, be respectful, be mindful. When you have things that are happening in a relationship, you don't discuss them with your friends.
Yeah.
Those are private. How to respect a woman.
Well,
And
all of the
absolutely.
bad words in Punjabi, they're all female related.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
When you think about
Yeah.
it,
Yeah, and it's disgusting.
And it
Yeah.
gets thrown left, right, and center.
like
it's
so
nothing.
common.
Yeah.
I hate it. I can't stand.
It's how do you, and that's my biggest thing, how do you respect women? When you say use those vile languages, but you also have a mom, a wife,
Sisters.
and a sister. So how do you say that, like, you know, and it's again, it starts with education. Like, they hear their dads say it, or they feel like it makes them more macho, and it's kind of like, no, it just makes you vile. Like, let's leave that language, and you know, like.
But it is a lot of it's intergenerational too,
Yeah.
right? So if you're as a child, you think that, and I feel like women too, when they see their fathers treating their mothers that way, they'll go find a partner who treats them like that too.
Because that's
And
comfortable. That's what they
it's-
see.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
their
That's all
normal.
they know.
That's the norm.
That's
Yeah.
their
Yeah.
normal.
That's all they know. And I think and then this is where we need to like educate and be like, you know what, let's have a conversation. Why do you think disrespecting women makes you feel powerful, right? Because it's also, yes, this has been happening to you, but it's also at some point your own insecurities, like, you know, so it's like,
Or something that you've watched growing
Yeah,
up,
like-
because like maybe your mom was
Yeah.
treated that way, so now you think, okay, well, I can treat my wife this way.
Yeah.
Or, you know, okay, well, you know, my dad treats my mom this way, so now you feel you can treat your
it's justifiable. They justify
Yeah.
it in their mind, but I think and you know what, and that's where you have the domestic violence, and you know, where the kids become part of divorce and custody battles, and then the women that hold kids hostage as a revenge.
Absolutely.
And you know, and it's heartbreaking because children are so innocent, they didn't ask for any of this, right? And it's kind of like, you know, before you go down that road, just take a moment, have a self-reflect, you know what, that we should have this conversation before we get married. And it also helps you understand your spouse, your fiance, or your boyfriend better, right? And you know, and you can also, and I think girls have this, tell me if you agree, that I can change him.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
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 Woman, nobody can change anybody.
No.
I think, and
He has to want to change.
Yeah,
Yes.
the
Yes.
person
Yeah, it has to be
and
genuine and
whether-
authentic change
you know,
from that
he or
person.
she, like, I find both ways. I mean, there's, you know, females going into a relationship, and they might be, and some females are vocally very abusive,
Yes.
and like, you know, whether it's not physical, it could be, you know,
seen that.
manipulating and like that kind of.
Belittling,
So
yeah.
and I think that shouldn't be allowed either,
Yeah.
and and
yeah, so
you
it's
need
not
to.
always men. Like it's
Yeah.
there are females that are very toxic.
Yeah,
You know,
and I
they-
always say, like, hurt people hurt people.
Yeah.
And if you have now someone who's going through maybe all of these things and they're generally unhappy, they're going to lash out, things are going to trigger them, and they're going to start hurting people in their lives as well.
Yeah.
So then you see all of this come out,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and you know, and you learn a lot by having these conversations about your spouse, or either way, right?
And a lot of people stay because it's looked down upon to have a divorce or then get remarried.
Yeah. Or I think girls stay in a relationship where their boyfriend constantly puts them down, as into, oh, we've been dating for 5 years, or they
Put the time in, so
Yeah.
they're scared of starting
I've invested
over.
like 10 years, I'm going to make it work. And
Yeah.
then 10 years turns into 20 years and you're still unhappy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, and the signs are like, even for male and female, like if your significant other is putting you down all the time, you know, is calling you stupid in front of your friends, and just those are behaviors that are going to continue. If they can't respect you in private, in front of your friends, then they just can't respect you anywhere in that relationship. And I think that
And if you
needs to be
haven't
addressed.
seen a change, like if you're with someone and you haven't seen a change in the last year, 2 years, 3 years, that change isn't coming.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So
and
if
it comes down to
let people
self-worth
be
as well.
like, let people be single. Marriage
Yeah.
is not the pinnacle of like your whole reason
It's really
why
not
you're
an
on the
achievement.
planet.
People
Yeah.
think like
No.
getting married is an achievement. It's
Sometimes
not.
being alone is actually better. If you can't
yeah.
find somebody who's going to meet you and enrich your life and make you happier, if you're happier, you can be happier by yourself. Ovi theek ya.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like, and stop forcing people into these relationships
relationships.
that has to happen
Yeah.
for people. I think we need that for our
especially
kids.
with females, like stop making a girl think that, hey, you have to be married at a certain age, have kids by a certain age, because what if she doesn't want any of that? What if she wants to get married but doesn't want to have kids? Or what if she wants to have kids and doesn't want to get married?
What if she likes girls?
What if she likes girls?
Exactly.
What if she doesn't like anyone and she just wants to
That's
be
a
alone?
conversation.
Yeah,
Yeah,
she
as
could be
well.
like
Yeah.
asexual, doesn't want anybody.
Doesn't
Yeah.
want anyone, you know?
That is actually a conversation that I think couples should have is
Yeah.
what if our kid, you know, one of our kids came to us and said, I'm homosexual. Like, how would you handle that? Because, you know, if that time
That could destroy a
came-
family. Absolutely. My brother's gay, like you guys know.
Yep.
And he came forward, and my mom was really like, we didn't tell my dad until my dad passed away, like close to passing away, that, by the way, you know, my brother's gay, because we like that can destroy a family. And you know, the way parents handle it, you know, communicate with their kids like, no, it's a phase, or he's like making a decision, wrong sakaya,
Yeah.
you can't, you know, keep him out of art school, they're teaching him weird things there. No, it's like your kids are born a certain way. And you know, if you're, as a parent, oh my God, if you know, that is a conversation that I've had because it runs in my family, and I've had said to Pinder, like, if one of our kids is, you know, tells us that they're you know, that they're gay, I have no problem with that. Like, my kids know they can marry a cherry tree as long as they're happy. I don't care. Could be doesn't matter. Like, just be happy. You know, because like, you're really born into this world with preferences of what you like and don't like, and you're only going to cause a host of problems in your life if you try to force yourself into something that is not you. You know what I mean? Like, that's an exaggeration, not a kutabila, but
But still, but still, it's just their negativity and their unhappiness is going to affect people around them.
But if my husband said, like, "Hontu abde nyane anu chad," over like him, like he's saying, like, you can't speak to my kids anymore, our marriage would be over. I could never do that for my kids. But there are partners out there that are like that, people that are like that, either moms or you know, in all cultures that will disown their children over something like that. Like, that's an important conversation to have.
If
And
they
then
marry
another
out
one,
a
like-
caste, we're not talking to them. Marry out a religion, we're not talking to you. Like, that's it, you're cut off. You're
True.
You know,
like, you know, if you have
not
like you have a couple of girls, are you going to keep trying for like a boy, or would you be happy with just, you know, having daughters? Like, these are all conversations
they need to be had
that have to be
and
had
those
in our culture.
conversations, like, I feel it needs to be just, you can't agree with you, then that's when you're like, okay, you know what, we need to maybe see get professional help, because at that point, you know, you're just going back and forth, and then you're starting to have this like resentment towards each other. You're being so you know, you start being very rude to each other at a point, because you're like, okay, why can't we agree on something? And it's
disgruntled, right?
And either you and you guys have to realize too, like, either one of you is going to have to bend, right? So it might be you, it might be your partner. Are you willing to? And if not, like, you know, breaking up before you get married, you know, is, as a couple, is cheaper than getting a divorce.
Absolutely.
You know, and divorce can be ugly, so many wasted years. There are a lot of people in this universe, you guys. It's not, you don't have to, because you've been with that guy for 5 years, there's other fish in the sea. If he's not making you happy and you can't picture, you maybe haven't had these hard conversations with them about your life, and now you can't see eye to eye, call it and walk away.
And same goes for the guys, right? Like, and it's, you know, if you cannot find a common ground with the girl, then you know what, it's better to separate before you put so much money, time. And in every community, like, you know, when you get married, it's like the families come together, right? And then there's a marrying of the family. So
a lot of investment there.
Right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, and so why go that far if you see that, you know what, all of a sudden you have difference of opinions? Because we grow. I mean, we grow every day. We learn new things. And at some time, you know, something you liked 5 years ago, you may not still want that. Right? So, you know, it's so important to have that. You know, you might have wanted kids now, and then you may not want it later. And either one thinking, oh, that person will change their mind.
Yeah.
No, having kids is such a huge thing. Nobody changes their mind.
And take your time. Get married when you're ready. Don't follow this timeline. It's really sad, like, girls over the age of 30 are just, you know, just finding anybody now and dating for a year, getting married.
I don't think okay, so I kind of disagree with that as well, because I feel like to a certain degree, and I think I actually said, Shannon, I heard you say this, and I was like, I could not agree more. And you were saying, you know, guys, like, there is a timeline, because as
biological
clock is ticking.
The
main reason a lot of girls, after they turn 30, they start to think about this, because they're like, okay, now I have to think about, when am I having kids, and do I want to go through all the special testing and all of this? Am I even going to be able to have kids?
Freeze your eggs, that's an option.
It's an option. It's an expensive option, but it's an option. And, you know, and I think, so I kind of, I agree, but I disagree with that, because I think, yes, you know what, you do, and a lot of the times I find, like, it's one extreme or another, because there's I find guys, and our community has labeled, it's okay if the guy's 35, 37, 40, because he can get married whenever he wants, but a girl has to get married Yes, but then a girl is being taught at such a young age, starting at like 16, 17, they're dreaming about their weddings now, and now they're focusing on like finding that perfect guy, and then they're rushing into it. But I think teaching our daughters and our sons is to, hey, focus on yourself. Be the person, figure out who you are first. You don't need a boyfriend or girlfriend at a young age. As soon as you know who you are, then find your significant other and look for what you're looking for and make sure your values. And by no means, you guys, we're not saying that doing everything we're saying is a way to a
100% perfect
life or marriage, because marriage is hard. Marriage is hard regardless. You're always going to have problems. Right? So
and it's a lot of work. It's a full-time job.
It's a full-time job.
It's a full-time
I
job.
always
And
tell
going
my
back to
husband
the
it's a
point you made
business.
about marriage is not an accomplishment. It's not,
it's
right?
not.
Yeah.
Doing the work to keep it together, that's an accomplishment.
That's an
Yeah,
accomplishment.
I always say
Right.
it's easier to get a divorce. It's harder to stay married.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's work.
A lot of marriages
Absolutely.
aren't happy marriages, and people would rather see you in a marriage, an unhappy marriage, than you not be married.
Yeah.
Right.
So-
right.
And
And
that's-
one part of marriage counseling is that it's not my job to keep people together. If you're better off separate, you're better off apart
Yep.
for your own sanity, for your own health. Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because you can't just take that toxicity from either side and be like, I'm good with it. Because eventually it's going to catch up in any way, like, any form of addiction, depression, alcoholism, drugs,
Right.
gambling, whatever it may be. And then it comes back to mental health, right? So you just have to, if you just take these small steps and not worry about the stereotyping, the stigma that comes with it, and think of yourself, think of your happiness, because people will talk, but there's only two people in a relationship. But there's a million opinions. But so,
And therapy is going to give you guys the tools to resolve.
Yeah.
Like going to counseling and learning early on in your relationship before you even get married how to communicate with each other and be really honest with each other is going to give you the tools to actually, not get
Have
into
a
that
successful-
blowout where somebody flips a table or, you know what I mean? Or, or somebody punches somebody,
like-
it's something that you should go into early. And my sister who married, one of my sisters married a Catholic guy, and they have this whole plan where you have to go see the priest and you have to finish a course before you get married. And I was just like, mind blown.
Yeah.
We need to adopt
need
this.
that.
We
need
need to
that.
take this and
Yeah.
we need to create like a sick program for couples
Yeah.
that is through our cultural lens and experience, and have couples go through this. Everybody should be doing this before you get married.
like have a Gandhi that tells you, like, like this is what it is, and have a counselor, just to be like, this is the reality of marriage, and this is what you people perceive when you see it, right? And it's just like once the parties are over, everybody's gone home, the expensive, lehengas and come off and tux comes off, it's work. It's real work.
It's a real life. You're
Yeah.
back to reality.
And now figure out how you're gonna live with it.
Yeah.
So I had a lot of DMs from girls saying that they feel that pressure to get married once they kind of pass a certain age, usually after 30. So what do you say to girls? Like, how do you deal with that? Because, you said you don't really agree with that because of the biological clock. But, I see a lot of girls that are now freezing their eggs and, doing alternatives, but they don't know how to deal with that pressure. So what would you say to somebody that has the pressure to get married and they don't even have somebody?
Right.
So, what can you do?
We ask them, why is it important to get married in the first place? Why is it so important to you to find a partner? Reflect on that,
Pressure from the
right?
parents.
Pressure from the parents. Why is it important to them?
And there could be something too, like
And
by
reflect
asking
on
that
that, right?
question,
So, yeah.
like there might be something that, because I've seen this in like my family as well, where a lot of my siblings did not marry Punjabi men because of watching my parents, and their marriage was really, my dad was very abusive. So there could be somebody who's like avoiding meeting a partner because they have so much, like for my sisters,
Yeah.
like they had so much trauma that they associated with my dad that they were like, I don't want that.
Yeah.
When they found other partners that didn't have those traits, they married them.
Yeah.
So there could be a reason where maybe even that person who's not married yet, something's holding them back
Yeah.
from getting into a relationship, and by seeing a therapist,
Yeah.
they can maybe peel back some of the layers
Right.
Yeah.
of why they
Be more
haven't,
open
maybe what,
to finding
why
somebody.
have they have so many boundaries? Are they in a situation where they are they anxious? Do they not like going out in public? Like there might be something more there.
Underlying
And
issues.
also,
Yeah.
I feel like we really need to normalize dating. I know that's another
Absolutely.
taboo
Yeah,
subject
for
where
sure.
they
Yeah.
think the first guy you date you should marry, and a lot of girls do that. I know a lot of girls that they're like high school sweetheart, they end up marrying that person, even if they're not right for them. So I think we need to normalize dating multiple people. Like you're allowed to date more than one person. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Right.
The first person you meet isn't
Going to be your baby daddy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that
You're
starts
not
with
going to bring them home.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that starts with trust, right? I think if parents can raise their kids in a way that they trust them, trust your
Yeah.
children, raise them in a way that you give them values,
Yeah.
give them trust that they go out and
They'll make
they'll
right choices.
date, they'll make the right choices. 'Cause it's really on you and the values you passed on those kids.
Yeah.
If you trust your kids, they'll do their best to make the right decision. And
And
who
the
they
funny
date.
thing is, they don't even let us date, and then they're like, okay, well now it's time for you to get married.
Yeah.
But you didn't even let us date, so
Yeah.
How am I supposed to buy this
find
coconut
somebody
off
all of
the
a
tree?
sudden now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Find this perfect spouse.
yeah,
if
where do you
you're
want me to
not
find this
looking.
person? I wasn't allowed to date for 25 years, and now
Yeah.
you want me to get
And
married.
they'll be like, "Tere ko friend hai?"
Yeah. You're
Yeah.
like,
But
let me
but I
just
wasn't allowed to have
sign.
friends.
Yeah, and then it starts of and I think there's nothing wrong with introduction, right? And there's nothing wrong with your parents, somebody introduction. Like there's nothing wrong with it. You know what?
Like arranged, are you talking about?
arranged and introduction, right? Like it just like there's nothing.
think
There's
I
a
think that-
difference between arranged
Yeah.
and introduction.
Introduction.
I think
yeah.
like an introduction's awesome because there's a lot of
You have a
unsavory
limit saying
people
no.
and
Yeah.
and I feel like if there's a short list of 10 guys that know that are looking for commitment, it's like a matchmaker
Yeah.
almost.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It is, yeah.
Where you could just meet some random person and they could have no intentions for a relationship and it's just games.
Yeah.
I think introductions is amazing. Save
Yeah.
time
Yeah.
because save emotional
open to
trauma.
Your
Yeah.
parents know you
Yeah, be open to
best,
it.
right?
Yeah.
So they know things about you that somebody else might not. And they see things in you, and they kind of know what you might like in
And
somebody. 'cause-
I've had a lot of clients that have had arranged introductions
Yeah.
and they're just cool normal people, but the parents knew hey, someone like this would be good for you, and they
yeah.
found they saw somebody and it happened and they found the right person.
Yeah.
And the young
So-
ones, there's that stigma to it. Oh, you're gonna tell me, but there's nothing wrong with
Or
it.
you
I
think,
don't
oh, I want to love, I want to find my own, person.
Yeah.
But it's like, okay, they're not saying, hey, there's this person, you're getting married tomorrow. They're
Yeah.
saying, hey, there's this person, get to know them.
Yeah.
Yeah, could
See
be a
how you like
possibility.
them, because
Yeah.
you might otherwise not meet this person. You might just be saying, closing a door to your future husband or
Yeah.
your wife,
Yeah.
right? At that
Yeah.
point.
Yeah. But I think we're coming to our time. So we're going to be carrying this on into our next episode. But before we go, I have a good question for you. So I did have one of the couple of messages about surrogacy. So how would you bring that topic up with your in-laws? In fertility, IVF is not working, and and your in-laws are old-fashioned, old school, and you want to bring up topic of surrogacy. How would you? What advice would you give a couple on to approaching that with their parents?
Find a safe space first.
Yeah.
Find a counselor. Have
Yeah.
a family kind of do the talk there with the therapist, right? They can mediate that thing, and they can all just dispel a lot of the myths around that as well too.
Yeah.
Someone who's knowledgeable about it, they can dispel some misinformation about surrogacy, what it is, what it isn't.
Yeah.
It's very helpful.
Yeah. So just also do your own research on
Exactly.
surrogacy, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I hope you're listening.
But I've kind of taken a step back. I feel like that's an A-B conversation. In-laws need to see themselves out of it.
I
I
totally agree with that,
Yeah.
but I
I'm
think
asking if Pinder and I had to get a
really-
surrogate and I had to go talk to mommy
I think
daddy
it's the
first.
backlash they're talking about, having it from the in-laws, as a girl,
Yeah.
as a
Right.
woman, having those cheap comments that are not that the baby bhi nahi hunda ye or wo hai, right? So at this point, you don't know whose issue it is, right?
right. I agree with Shannon. It's an A and B conversation for the
Yeah.
most part, but I mean, if you're living together with in-laws, you're gonna hear those comments.
Yeah.
Probably you're gonna hear that judgment, right? And if you have someone that's knowledgeable of it, you can educate, the in-laws, whoever it is, who's not totally,
They may not
knowledgeable
know the
about it.
process about it.
Yeah.
Exactly, right? And that's like a non-biased, non-judgmental person telling you, here's the truth about it, here's the facts about it, right? When, if you go back to that whole mother-in-law thing, mother-in-law might not take daughter-in-law's word for it. right? Because sometimes there's distrust there. So finding someone who's, a trustful, knowledgeable source that can mediate that,
Yep.
it's beneficial.
Therapy is the answer to everything.
You know what? And
That's right.
And minding your own business too, I think.
Yeah.
Like no, seriously. I just think like when you're living or if you're living with in-laws or you're living with whatever it is, I just feel like, okay, if you're all living together, learn to mind your own business too, because everyone doesn't need your opinion for everything.
Yep.
And I think sometimes as like Indian parents, they have a hard time stepping back because they think, oh, I'm responsible for you, like I have to make every decision for you. And again, it comes down to not letting your children grow up.
Yeah.
Let them make their own decisions, right?
Yep.
But I think Suki had a really good point. Suki, you want to talk about that? That when you're...
I don't even know what is that. Like getting married for the wrong reasons? Is that what you're talking about?
No, just... Oh my God, it totally slipped my mind. I just had it that you wanted us to remind you of... We're going to have to do it next time because I totally forgot. It was such a good point that
Well, I
you
do have
brought
another
up.
point. A lot of people get married
Yes, that was one.
because
The wrong reasons.
Yeah,
The wrong reasons.
because they think marriage equals freedom. Because I grew up hearing from my parents too. Once you get married, you can travel. Once you get married,
Yeah.
you can like
Jo
even like, cut my hair. They weren't even like,
yeah,
you can color your hair. You could like even like little things like that. So, and I've heard from a lot of girls that they grew up with really strict parents and they got married because they thought now I can do whatever I want. But then you get married and then you have your in-laws who stop you. So it never really ends. And
That's why you buy your own house.
yeah, and be financially independent. I think that's really important. Make sure, you're secure. Like that's why I waited, because I wanted to have my own property. I wanted to make sure my business was where it is before I got married. So I heard it a lot. Like, when are you going to get married? And I'm only 27, but I heard it a lot. So I can only imagine what girls, older than me are hearing. So yeah, I just had to sit people down and have those conversations that I'm going to get married when I'm ready. I'm not ready yet, and I'll let you guys know when I'm ready, and don't ask me again. And I don't hear it anymore because I had that conversation.
But if I didn't, set that boundary.
Yeah. And if
So
I didn't,
important.
people would still be asking me constantly, when are you getting married? When are you getting married? Even on social media, people DM me all the time, when are you getting married? So it's pretty funny. It's just something that I guess people just do, like, when are you going to have kids? I don't think there's any really like malicious intent behind it. People are just excited for you.
They're excited for you, but it's so ingrained in our culture.
Yeah, they don't
Yeah.
realize, like, there could be some, like, really, some important reasons why you're not. And just maybe think about that before you ask somebody, because you never know why they're not.
So, Sharon, what would you want to tell the girls that think, and you as well, Shannon, that it's a freedom for me to get married. I'm going to leave my parents' house now. I can go to a movie at 11 o'clock that starts and go for dinners every day and nobody's going to stop me. What do you guys have to say? Because I know you guys hear a lot in your business. So, like, how do you respond to that?
I don't think that's a right reason to get married. Like if you're thinking, I want to go to a movie at 12 o'clock at night, I don't think that's a good enough reason to be like, I'm going to commit to this human being for the rest of my life and this whole family now, because that might not be the case. And it's just, it doesn't make sense for you to, make such a huge life decision over, I want my freedom, because you can have that freedom with your parents. All you have to do is communicate with your parents and set those boundaries and say, listen, I'm an adult, like I can take care of myself. And you know what, your parents might say, you know what, pack your bags and leave then. If you have to do that, like it
Turned out
that's
well
the only,
for Shannon.
we have a very successful story right here.
Yeah.
So
my mom told me, if you're gonna marry this guy, leave, and I'm like, okay, bye.
And
then I left.
sometimes that makes you a stronger person, and you might just have to do
I'm so glad
that.
that it did.
Yeah.
Like all the things that were meant, it's so true, the cliche, if it doesn't kill you, it's going to make you stronger.
Yeah.
I totally
And
believe that.
the whole, I think the big piece around our happiness as like South Asian females, it's all around the freedom. Only you can give yourself that freedom. If you want to go out to a movie at midnight, no one's really going to be happy with that. If you live on your own, you can, but like, that's if you're living with other people, there's going to be some ground rules, and if you don't want to have any ground rules, then you create those for yourself. So I think the earlier you can learn to be independent financially, emotionally independent and mature is so important. Be happy with yourself.
Yeah,
Don't
learn
ever
to love
expect
yourself
someone to
first.
be that you're not this key that someone's going to put into you, and all of a sudden life is going to be amazing and you're going to have a best friend. Like, you have to be your own best friend.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And
love
then-
yourself
and love
first.
yourself, and not expect someone to be your best friend and to love you and fill that kind of like void in you.
Yeah,
It's
nobody
really
can
like a
fix
lot
you,
of and those things of like moving out and then realizing when you leave your home situation, wow, that's not a good place for me, and how toxic it is. And then again, like leaving my in-laws and having my own place for Pinder and I helped our marriage so much.
Yeah.
Built us financially. Like, those moves of the separation.
Yeah,
I think
honestly
are the
think
best
every
things.
couple, like, and this is just a personal opinion, I just think every couple should experience living on their own.
100%.
Or have your own space in the house, too.
where
Like
no one is
some-
bothering you. You need your own entrance. You need to, like, where no one is bothering you. It's just you and him, and you guys are cooking together, cleaning together, doing that kind of stuff together, getting to know each other, getting to know what makes you upset with the other person, and no one interfering in it, because I think it's so important. And that's why I think it's so important for Indian parents to accept that, hey, if our daughter and our future son-in-law want to live together before getting married, allow it. Let them live together for a little while and see how it is, because it's better to know. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right? And it's to be true when they realize, like, I hate you.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
also makes you,
Or not even I hate you, but I
Yeah.
can't live with you, and
Yeah.
I don't see this thing
Like,
forever.
those socks
Yeah.
in the corner of the room, they're really pissing me off.
Yeah.
You need to start picking those
hairs
up.
in the sink
Yeah,
shaving.
from shaving is really bothering me.
No, it is. And you know what? And it also makes your relationship stronger.
Yeah.
So what's your take on that?
About living together before marriage.
Yeah.
Yeah, if the opportunity is there, then you should take it.
Sorry?
If the opportunity is there to
Opportunity is
take
there,
it, you should take it,
Yeah.
right? But I think, again, I mean, we're talking about something that's taboo in our community,
Yeah.
right? So until we break those stigmas, we really can't get in these conversations, right? I mean, we can have the conversations.
That takes a lot of work that we have to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
A
I
lot
mean,
of,
yeah.
and you've probably heard this too, a lot of clients I've had, they hide their relationship for like 7 to like 10 years. And I'm
Right.
like, how did you do that? Like, they hid it until they're
library bumping.
until they're
Yeah.
until
SFU
they're like
Friday
now
nights,
ready
yeah.
to get married.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, they've
Yeah.
hidden it from their parents, and they're
Yeah.
like, okay, so this is this person I've been dating for 10 years, and now we're ready to get married. I don't know, it could be a
But
good thing.
could you imagine though? I feel like as a parent, like that would horrify me, because
Like, you had this person for this many years,
and there could
I
be
had no
things
idea.
like that, like especially daughters, like, you know, you have heartbreak or you break up with somebody and you can't talk to your parents about it.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I remember breaking up with a boyfriend
Yeah,
and
it's
being
sad.
so heartbroken, and I had to tell my mom that one of my friends died.
Yeah.
Because I could not stop crying. You
Or
know
like
what I mean?
you
Like, you
get
can't.
flowers or something, and then you have to leave them in your school locker and let them die because you can't bring them home.
Yeah.
And all
Throw
that
them
is
away
in the
is an
garbage.
immense amount of stress, this hiding relationship for so many years as well, too. There's so
Yeah.
much
Poor flowers.
tension and stress on that.
It is. Yeah, and you build all this inside of you because you're keeping this huge secret, and then you want to make sure you don't get busted, and then the lies
That's
that
right.
build up, right? And it's like you're carrying a mount on your shoulders, and you got to make sure no auntie sees you, that you don't know anybody. You got to fly like an hour
They
out to go
will
for a
see you.
dinner
They're
or
everywhere.
something, right?
Like, I have a story there that I'll share with you guys after this, but yeah.
Yeah. So in closing, you guys want to add anything on
We
this?
love you
topic?
guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We want
Yes.
the whole point of this is that we want you guys to like haste kelo, have love,
Yeah.
life, laughter in your life. There is, you know, I know we talk about like a lot of serious stuff,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but we're all here to like have these really important conversations, and at the end of the day, it's just to all make sure that asi pyar na ikkathe rahe
Yeah.
Yeah.
and have stronger family bonds and have better
Yeah.
bonds with each other and ourselves even.
Live
Yeah.
and let live.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's also see that, there are other tools that are offered that we didn't know about, that you didn't know about. So, premarital counseling, I didn't know about that it existed until recently. And there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with counseling of any kind, period.
I'm gonna do it for sure.
Yes, and I feel like the stigma needs to be, like, we need to step out of that and stop, saying, "Onu ki pata jaake ਉਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਕਿਸੇ stranger ਨਾਲ." That's the important thing. It's a stranger.
Yeah,
They're
they're not
not going to
taking
side
sides.
with
Unbiased.
anybody.
Yeah.
They're going to give you the true experience and,
Yeah.
and the tools that you need and how to be happy.
Yeah.
Right? So it's also good to have a male point of view. for the guys out there, you have any questions? Here he is, right? Your hashtag, it's at Man Counseling.
Man Counseling,
right?
yeah.
So ID him, Google him, call him, stalk him, get an appointment with him, and we have list of counselors on our roundtable IG. So,
and it's not
all there.
something you guys like. We're not saying, oh, go to this counselor, and
It's a must, yeah.
Yeah, you don't. You might think, oh, I don't need to, and no one needs to know about it.
And counseling's a lot of work too.
Yeah, it's
like
yeah.
it's a lot of hard work.
And sometimes there's people that go to counseling. They'll be like, no, I'm not seeing this counselor again. He's telling me I'm wrong. And that's a big thing too,
Yeah,
where
I've
it's
heard
like,
that,
okay, but. And sometimes like I know like how crazy I could get, so
they're just calling you on
calling you on your shit, right? Like, it's like, listen, you're not, and I'm sure I would be one of those people where I'd be like, you know what, me and you are connecting, so I'm gonna go find someone else.
And that's totally fine too.
Right? And
You have options.
And but it's give it a shot.
Yeah.
Try it out. See if it's for you.
Don't make excuses. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So thank you so much for joining us. Any comments, concerns you have, DM us on our platforms. And once again, I want to thank our vendors, Arya Banquet Hall. Thank you so much for sponsoring us and letting us have this place. And Vidar Studios, Rita's Kitchen, Olive and Thornton Events, and Angel Personalized. Thank you so much. And we'll see you guys